Good morning or good evening, everyone. In the next 25 minutes, I will discuss about the detection of sensitive data in large data sets using Ray. My name is Srinivasrao Aravilli. I am working as a Director of Engineering in Visa, handling security and privacy engineering in large data sets. So, talk about a data platform, data protection use case. Large amount of data is collected and processed in enterprise companies, and the data grows exponentially. This data can be in the form of structured or unstructured, and it may contain sensitive information. Detection and protection of sensitive data is extremely important because of the directives and laws imposed by various regulations in various countries. If you see the data from United Nations organizations, 66% of the countries have legislations related to data privacy and data protection. Similarly, 10% of the countries have drafted their legislations. I am from India. If you see the India Data Protection Bill, so that is also currently in the form of legislation, and 19% of the countries currently don't have any legislation. So this clearly shows that around 75% of the countries in the world have their own privacy regulations and laws. So that's why it's very, very important to detect and protect the sensitive information. There are quite a bit of traditional approaches followed to detect the sensitive information. There are products like data loss prevention in the cloud as well as enterprise as well. Most of these products, they use static rules with some custom code, or they make use of regular expressions along with some of the static rules, or at the same time they may use static sampling as well. So these are all the different approaches which traditional companies will make use of in order to detect the sensitive data. So take for an example of a regular expression based one. So there are four tables in the structured data. One is the employee table, another one is a country table, product table, and this company collects a lot of telemetry data from various devices, and that's why they want to persist the telemetry data as well. In each of these columns, there is a name column in employee name, and in country name, and then products, whatever the product names, and then telemetry data, whatever the metric name, they are collecting it. In a traditional rule-based, regular expression-based systems, it will detect all as sensitive data because of the regular expression. They may detect as like a name as a sensitive data type. But in reality, only employee name may be sensitive, but the country name like India or China or United States of America, so that may not be a sensitive data. And similarly, product names or telemetry data like CPU utilization, those kind of things may not be a sensitive data itself. So that's why if you see that only employee name, the first name in the employee table is a sensitive information that they need to be protected. But whereas the country names and product names and telemetry data, no need to protect in this particular use case. So the limitations with respect to regular based expressions or regular based expression systems are basically they miss the context information. They don't consider the context when executing these regular expressions. So that's why most of the times they end up with moderate to high false positive rates in these kind of systems. There is one more aspect to look into the sensitive data detection itself. Suppose assume like if I have a large amount of data and instead of scanning the entire data sets, so most of these cloud data loss prevention systems or enterprise data loss prevention systems, they provide a sample of data. You can scan it and then find out how much is the sensitive data information exist in that particular application or particular data set. In that way, you no need to scan the entire data set, and then your scanning cost will reduce. So typically, most of these companies will provide the sampling either based on number of rows in the structured data needs to be scanned. Assume like if you have a billions of rows, and instead of scanning billions of rows, you may specify that, hey, scan only 1,000,000 rows. That is good enough to figure out the amount of sensitive data in my system, or percentage of the data itself, right? Assume like if they can say that scan only 30% of the data or 50% of the data in my data set. If it is unstructured data, assume like the data stored in file systems, okay? So then they may say that, hey, scan the number of files, maybe X number of files, or maybe file sizes. So these are the various sampling techniques are used by traditional DLP and scanning tools. What are the limitations with this approach? Basically, the same configuration applied for all data sets, okay? As whether the data can be HR data, or it can be marketing data, or a sales data, or a transaction data, telemetry data, irrespective of whatever the data set, you may apply the same configuration, the same sampling configuration. That is one limitation. Or maybe we have to apply different configurations each time when you run the data scanning based on the data set. So here itself, there is no learning happening based on the scanned data or scanned results. So these are the two limitations with respect to traditional approaches. One is sampling, another one is rule-based or regular expression-based systems. So how to overcome these limitations? So that's why we experienced and working on a context-aware sensitive data dissection system using machine learning and deep learning. And we make use of dynamic sampling based on the accuracy of the sensitive data scans rather than the static sampling configuration. So we experimented and implemented using Spark as a library for the distributed processing and Spark machine learning in order to detect the sensitive data in the large data sets. This is a little bit of a high level architecture of the system. So we load the sensitive data, and fortunately we have a labeled data which has whether a particular structured data is sensitive or not sensitive. So we do the data pre-processing layer, and then we generate the features. Features are generated. Here we use word embeddings based on the word2vec or fast text, glow, bet. There are different word embeddings we have experimented, and these features are fed into the machine learning model. So there we use a cross validation and a hyperparameter tuning layer as well. In the machine learning model, we experimented with Spark machine learning libraries and used logistic regression, decision trees, SVM, and random forest. And random forest is worked very well in this particular use case. And finally, it emits the sensitive data classification. As I mentioned, in this system, so we stop it based on the accuracy of the sampling itself. So assume that if the accuracy, if we get 90 to 95%, so then we stop. Otherwise, we go and fetch more number of data, more number of rows from the underlying SQL or NoSQL or Hadoop systems, and run the model again, and then generate the scores. So the same system we thought, okay, experiment and then see with Ray, and would like to see how it works, and then what are the kinds of the benefits we get using Ray. So we did a POC using Ray and a smaller data sets, unlike the way we are executed with the Spark ML with the large data sets. So in Ray, we have used almost all the functions like ray.init to initiate the ray server and shutdown to shut down the ray server, and then we use the ray.remote decorator to execute some of the Python functions, and especially we use the two attributes of the remote decorator, the num CPUs. So that is basically to figure out and specify that number of CPUs are used to execute this particular remote function and how many parameters it is returning. In one particular case, we have to return more than one parameter as a return value of the function. So that's why we are using num return attributes as well. So then in order to execute the function, we make use of dot remote call, and once the function is executed, to fetch the results, we use ray.get to get that object itself. So if you see in the right hand side, there is a simple code, a bunch of imports, ray.import, and since we are using pandas in this POC, pandas and numpy are imported, and we started ray server using init function. Before starting, just we want to make sure that any existing ray server is there, shut down the ray server. And then once the ray server is started, it displays the messages like where it is using the Redis cache and how you can access the dashboard, so on and so forth. So once the array server is started, so we want to generate the data and load the data itself. As I mentioned, we have a labeled data set. In this particular case, assume the data is coming from a structured data like any RDBMS, and the table, as in our example case, there are 4 tables: employee, product, telemetry, and country table, and then each table has their own column names, and then data types, the character data type or boolean or whatever the data type, and each data length, and whether a particular field is nullable or not, and whether a particular row, right, whether a particular attribute is sensitive, yes or no. And then what is the sensitive type, whether it is first name, whether it is a last name, whether it is a social security number or a credit card number or a gender, okay, so and so forth. So this particular data is available in our systems as a labeled data set. So we created a Python function called create input vector, so that will read the data from a CSV file in this POC and generate the input vector. And just if you see, you notice that we use the ray.remote decorator, and at the same time this particular create input vector function is executed using .remote function. So this particular data is loaded in the ray server now. So now we experimented with word embeddings in order to generate the feature generations using GenSim. So if you see here also written another ray remote function called word2vec. Here we are using GenSim's implementation of word2vec, and each vector, the dimension of the generated word embeddings are 100 dimensions. Since it's a POC, 100 dimensions are working very well. In the production, we increase that dimension size to 255. And what is the minimum word count, and the rest of the parameters are configured. And at the same time, if you see that, so once we generated the features are here nothing but the table name, column name, and data type, whether it is sensitive, yes or no, and at the same time the column length as well. So all these features are concatenated and given to word2vec. So this will generate a word embeddings of that particular concatenated string. So that looks like this. So the input vector, as I mentioned, employee name, employee first name, character 100, whether it S no field. So for this entire concatenated string is given to word to vector, and then it generates a word embeddings of 100 dimensions. If you see that, so that's what 100 dimensional array of vector features are generated for each row in the database. So once the data is loaded, once the features are generated, so now we want to extract the labels which we have. So the labels are S-no, so we want to convert into the labels as transform the labels S-no to 10. So that's why it's easier to process to the system. That's why we are using a label encoder from scikit-learn. And then, as I mentioned, so it's executed here remote function using the same array.remote decorator, and once the particular is executed, so then you can access array.get, and then you can provide the object reference of what previously executed array object, and then you can, similar to any data frame, you can visualize the data as well. So now the labels are extracted. Now we have to generate the input output features. The input features are nothing but here the vector features, whatever we generated. So basically that the data frame contains, the pandas data frame contains the vector features. Now that I'm converting into a NumPy array so that it's easier to pass to the ML model. And similarly, y is nothing but here the label which we have encoded using label encoder, and the same thing converted into a NumPy array and forward to the machine learning model. So that's what this particular required feature label, which takes the data frame, and it is returning the number of returns. If you see that for the array.remote decorator, I'm passing the num returns as 2. So here it is generating the x features as well as the y labels as well in this particular Python function. The same Python function is executed using the array.remote function. So now once we have the input out features are extracted, and the same thing is given to sklearn scikit-learn model to generate the training data and test data based on the data loaded itself. So here we are using around 70% of the data as a training data and 30% of the data as a test data. So if you pass this particular the data which is generated using the vector dimensions and the labeled, so that data, if you pass it, so that will, this particular function will split the data into training data and test data. So that's why it is returning a x.train, x.test, y.train, y.test, and the num parameters returned are 4 in this particular case. So that's why we are using a array.remote decorator, and the num returns is equal to 4 in this particular case. So model training. So as I mentioned, like we are using in this particular POC, the scikit-learn random forest classifier. It is simple. Any Python function can be executed as array remote functions. That's what we are doing here. And the train model will take the random forester and the number of estimator here 50 we are using it, and then the model is fit in this particular case. So once the model is created, so we are executing the model with the training data and the training features as well. Okay, so that's what the train.model.remote function will do it. So once the model is executed, so the model is ready. So what we are doing is using array, we are extracting the test features. So that's why extract text feature, if you give it, so you will get the test features, okay, the test data. So now the test data is given to array model, okay, to predict it. So in this particular test data, we got almost like 100% accuracy of the using the random forest model for the predictions itself. So since it is a smaller data set, maybe it is working very fine, and then you are getting a prediction value of very high accuracy itself. But when you try the same model with large data sets, the accuracy will vary, and it may get around 99.95% and so on, based on the previous Spark based models itself. So far we did a quick POC, and the POC is very encouraging. What we thought is, what is the future journey of Ray? So we want to experiment with the benchmark with the Spark ML based model, what we have with large data sets, okay, which we get 99.99 accuracy, and then compare with Ray with Spark as well, and see what kind of accuracy we will get it. And we want to try Ray on a multiple GPU box and a CPU clusters as well. And then we want to make use of various serving technologies like TensorFlow Serve, and similarly Ray Serve as well. Just compare with, in our scenario, compare the predictions layer and serving layer and benchmark with the Ray Serve versus TensorFlow Serve, and then see which best suit for this detection of large data set for the sensitive data. And finally, we want to use a Ray cluster and then make use of RayTune to fine-tune the Ray system end-to-end, and then hyperparameter tuning as well with RayTune. Thanks for your time. Be safe in the pandemic.